Hey, what is up guys, Simon here, and in this video I'd like to show you what's new in Entitas 0.45.1. As always, you can get the latest version and see all the release notes on the official GitHub repository. But I also wanted to make a video because I really wanted to show you the new code generator, which I think is really awesome and it can really drastically improve your workflow when using Entitas. So before we dive into it, I'd like to give you an overview of the versions you can get at the moment. So for the longest time, we had the Entitas C# zip and the Entitas Unity zip, and both of them were attached to each release on GitHub. So they are both free and open source. And the main difference obviously is that the C# only version doesn't have the Unity integration or the visual debugging, which is specific to Unity. But there's also a new Unity Asset Store version, and all of them have all the features of Entitas, all the great performance and optimizations and low memory. They all have the cool code generator. So the main difference is that the Unity Asset Store version comes with the Roslyn plugin, and the Roslyn plugin actually plugs into the code generator and attempts to address all the issues we had with the current code generator. And I really like to give you a demo now because I think it's really awesome. So therefore, let's create a new Unity project. Of course, this will also work with a C# only project, but for this demo purposes, I will use Unity. So let's create a new project and call it Entitas 0.45.1. And the first thing we want to do is go to Window, Asset Store, or Command 9 to open the Unity Asset Store. And then search for Entitas. And you should see Entitas by Simon. You click it. And get the latest version. By the time of this video, I already uploaded a new version which is still in review. So I will use that version instead. But of course, by the time you will watch this video, I guess Unity will have accepted this version, which is 0.45.1. I have it here. So I will just drop it here. Awesome. So now we will see a new menu item, which is Tools, Entitas, and let's just open the preferences, or what I like to use, Command-Shift-E. And I will make another video where I explain all of these and all, for example, the Entitas properties file and the code generator itself. So if you don't want to miss that video, make sure to subscribe. In this video, I will just do the fast version. So initially, when you set up Entitas the very first time, you just click Auto Import and you're basically done. So what happens if we generate now? We get an error because assembly C# hasn't been generated by Unity yet. That's really easy to fix by just clicking Assets, Open C#. If you have created any files before, you will already have this file. Let's close that, and I will use Rider instead, my IDE of choice. All right, great. So now we can generate. And we see a new folder, sources, generated. And as we use the default context game and input, we see game and input. None of them have any components yet. So let's change that and create our first component real quick. And I usually like to have a folder, components, where I drop all my components. And let's just add a new health component. And I use my live templates, and I really recommend using templates. It can really speed up your workflow. So let's make an integer value. Awesome. Let's go back to Unity, wait for it to compile. And now we can either go to the preferences and hit the generate button, or what I like to use, I use the shortcut Command-Shift-G for generate. So now we see we have a new component. We have the game health component. Which has all the methods we know, like add health, replace health, remove health. Let's split that real quick. Cool. So if we make any changes now, for example, change integer to a string, we will see we have a compile error here, and it says cannot convert integer to string, because component value, we just changed it to string, but we still get an integer, right? So if I go back to Unity and try to compile, I use the shortcut, it will tell me there are compile errors. Generated code will be based on the last compiled executable. So what was the last compiled executable? It was back then when this was still an integer where we were able to compile. So to make this more obvious, I just do some changes here. It's generated code, it will be overwritten, so it doesn't matter. So again, I generate, and it will tell me, okay, there are errors. The last version will be used. That means this will be overwritten, and it's still an integer. So in the past, the way we fixed this, we tried to kind of get rid of all compile errors. So in this case, you can just uncomment it or remove it completely. It's generated code, it will be regenerated, doesn't matter. So now we don't have any errors. So now we can compile and generate. Now it's a string. So let's change it to something else, for example, a long. Same thing, we have an error, we fix the issues, we go back to Unity, and we generate. So to recap, the steps are writing some code, going to Unity, and then we wait for Unity to compile the sources. And depending on the size of the project, this can take 10, 20, 30 seconds or 40, depending on the machine and the size of your projects. And I personally also worked on projects where it took 30 seconds or more just for Unity to recompile. And we have to wait until this process is done, and then we generate, and then it recompiles again. So that process can take up to a minute, and that's not really ideal. Plus, if there are any issues with the code, we have to fix them. And especially in the beginning, when you're new to Entitas and changing a lot of code, that might be a real bummer. It will definitely get better once you know, once you get the hang of Entitas and know how to fix those things quickly, but still, it's not a good workflow. So now I want to show you the workflow with Roslyn, because I think that's way superior. All right. So let's just open our Entitas package that we downloaded, and we see the code generator. I will just reveal it in the Finder. And this zip contains the code generator, the standalone one that we will use in a second in the terminal, and also the default plugins and the Roslyn plugins. So let's unzip it. And let's just grab all of this. Well, first I show you the contents. It's the code generator with Entitas exe, and the plugins, the default plugins, and the new Roslyn plugins. And two scripts that I will show you later. So I will just move them in the root of the project, where also the asset folder is. Actually, you could put it anywhere, but I think it makes sense to drop it in the same folder than the project if you work with multiple projects that have different Entitas versions. All right, cool. So now we can actually delete the zip and the folder. All right, then let's use the standalone code generator. For that, I will open a terminal window, and I will go in my project folder. And I will just run the Entitas exe. So, and since I'm on a Mac, I have to use Mono. If you're on Windows, you can just run it. So it's code generator Entitas exe. Now let's see what happens if we just run it. It will actually show us the help screen. where we can see all the commands we can use. For example, gen for generate, doctor to check the config for any potential problems, and others. Again, I will make a video about this topic where I go in depth with all the commands and what the Entitas properties file actually is and what cool features it can do. But we just do the short version here. So first of all, I will just use the auto import command, the same thing we actually used in Unity with the auto import button. So it tells me to press any key, it will add some keys, then it asks me some questions. Do you want to add the Roslyn plugin? So we say yes. Then it found another Roslyn plugin, so we're going to use this. Now it found a few problems. For example, the component data provider, there's a potential collision. It found the component data provider in the default plugins and the Roslyn plugin. So you can keep the first one or keep the second. I will keep Roslyn, of course. It will confirm it by telling me to remove the other one. And then it found another collision. Again, I will choose 2. So I press 2. Then it will ask me a few other things. Again, I will talk about this in the other video, but for now I will just say ignore. So I will press I, and then last step, I can actually remove that key. Okay. So now if I run doctor, it tells me a few things, but all I'm interested in is this guy telling me no problems detected, happy coding. So I know everything is fine. And actually I use an alias, so I can write Entitas doctor instead of what we just had before. So this alias expands to that. It just looks nicer and I use it all the time. So okay, cool. So let's actually generate with the gen command. Great. And let's see if that also works. So let's change something here. Let's change this back to an integer. So I go back to the terminal, generate, go back, and this is an integer. Let's change this to a string. Go back and generate. And it's a string. And to make it really, really obvious, let's just make some compile errors. Let's just add some random stuff here. Make this whatever, a float. And generate. And it works. It's a float. It's called health now instead of value. So it all works like it should actually work right from the beginning. All right, so let's change this back to value. Awesome. Integer. Okay, cool. So that's good already. But as you can see, if I press enter in 3, 2, 1, go, it takes a few seconds. And while this is okay, we can still do better. So because what happens, it loads all the assemblies it needs to load into memory and then parses the project and generates files. And all this loading, we can actually keep it in memory, so it only has to do it once. So the way to do this is we just start Entitas as a server. So if you take a look at all the available commands, we see the server command, start the server mode. Again, I will do a video on that where I talk more about it, but for now I will just run this. Or an easier solution is what I recommend in the morning when you start working on your project. You just click Start Code Generator, or if you're on Windows, Start Code Generator. But so by double clicking it, it opens a terminal window, and now you can just minimize it or hide it or ignore it. Doesn't matter. Well, for the sake of this tutorial, I'll keep it open and show what actually happens. Because now what you can do is, for example, create a new terminal window and use Entitas in client mode, and this means you can send any commands, for example, doctor. That means this client will send doctor over, this will respond, and so it's bidirectional. We see the output here, and of course we also can send the generate command. And if we compare the speed now, once it's in memory, because the server is always alive, the process is not terminated. 3, 2, 1, go, done. So this is really, really fast. So what does it actually mean? We're not doing this in the terminal, right? That's not good. So we can now also use the code generator from within Unity with this new generate with external code generator, and it has this shortcut. So what it actually does is it will connect to the server, send the generate command, and disconnect. So if I click it, we see connecting, connected, generating, generated, disconnected. And to make this more visible, I go here. So I press the shortcut, and we see things are happening over here. So if you really want to still generate from within Unity, you can do this, but the very best way I would recommend is actually staying in the IDE where you write your code and add a shortcut. Visual Studio is able to do it. Rider's definitely able to do it. I'm not quite sure about MonoDevelop on the others, but you can find it out. So what I do is a custom command. I will go to configurations. I will add a new task for execute an executable. And I will locate the Entitas exe file. As arguments, I just say it should send the client generate, and this is also the name of this configuration. And the working directory is my project. I don't need any building steps before, so I can remove that. So it's super fast. So now I can click this button, or I can also click here, run Entitas gen, and it has a shortcut. So from now on, I will just use the shortcut, Command R. And as we see, it connects and generates. Now, this is pretty awesome, because now I want to show you how you can actually drastically improve your workflow. So let's make the first example here. So I do string, change it to a string, and hit the shortcut, and it's a string. Change it back to an integer, hit the shortcut, and it's an integer. So really, really fast. Now let's do a real life example. So for example, we add a game controller. And then let's add a constructor and create a context. All right, and let's create our first entity, which is context create entity. Now we can just add the health. Let's also add a position. We don't have a position. Never mind, let's create one, and we just keep this intentionally for the demo to see the compile errors. So we create a new position component. I use my templates, and let's do a public vector3 value. Oops, value. Then let's go back to the game controller and add position vector3 0. Let's add add velocity. Of course, we don't have this, so let's create a velocity component. Use template. Let's do another vector3 value. I will use the shortcut, and by the time I'm back in this file, it already knows at velocity. So let's go forward. Cool. Can of course also do things like is movable. We don't have it, so let's create a component, movable component. We don't need anything. Generate, go back, is movable, true. So super, super fast, right? And just to make it really clear, if there are any compile errors, which we had all the time when we started writing, but anyway, let's create another one. What shall we do? A cool component, right? Because it's really cool. Generate, go back, is cool, true, awesome. So this is a really, really nice workflow. So we don't have to go back to Unity or compile, so we don't have to wait for that. We skip that step totally. We never actually leave the IDE, and the whole code generation experience really goes into the background, and we don't even see that it's there, right? And I want to show you that it works with Unity as well. So let's say I create a new component, works with Unity component. Cool. Let's go back to Unity, and I try to hit the shortcut before Unity starts compiling, just to show you that it's actually using the Roslyn one. So go back, hit the shortcut, go back. But just to show you the logs here, we saw connecting, generating, and stuff like that. Cool. Now we can just say works with, it works with, yeah, let's change this. Let's create a unique prefix. Let's say does works with work with Unity. Awesome. Generate. Does work with Unity equals true. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, so I really like this workflow now. It's really fast, and it really doesn't distract you anymore from the actual tasks, right? The code generation really completely went into the background. All right. Small summary. So code generation in Entitas. We have these ways to generate. We have the standalone code generator that we can use in the terminal, for example. We have the Unity one that we used for the longest time. You know this from the this image here with the green generate button. And now we also have a way to connect to the standalone code generator from within Unity if you like to do that. And this is helpful or necessary if you use plugins that are not compatible with Unity, and you have to run it actually in the standalone version. So what are the benefits again? So we have the Entitas plugin on the left and the Entitas Roslyn plugin on the right that comes with the Unity Asset Store version. Both of them run in the standalone code generator. Both of them run within Unity, but the Roslyn code generator again only works in this server client mode. With the Roslyn plugin, we don't have to wait for compilation, so we will save a lot of time here. And we will save even more time because we don't have to fix script errors before we are able to regenerate. And sometimes the fix for the code issues are actually to regenerate. So we have a catch-22. So now we don't have this problem anymore. So if you want to get the latest Entitas version, as always, you can get it from the official GitHub repository. Also make sure to follow me on Twitter at Entitas C# if you want to get the latest updates. And I will make a follow-up video where I explain the code generator a little bit more in depth, and in case you have some issues, how you can resolve them. So make sure to subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.